It's WG bringing you SMB. Nightmare Mode Zargon is here and you want to know how to beat it and or what are the best teams, how can you get the highest score, or maybe you even need a couple tips on how to take on stage 5 with these teams. So I'll be showing you everything from who to gear how to time, who's good where, and everything else alike. First off though, make sure that you do not miss out on your daily attempts. You have 2 attempts that you can use for stage 5 or the highest stage you've cleared, and then the nightmare attempts are separate. So these 2 don't have the same amount of attempts, and the way these attempts in nightmare actually work is you only lose an attempt if you actually go through with 3 fights. So for example, let's say we play team 1 and we're unhappy with our score, we can quit, we can reset, we can try team 1 again. We play team 1, we play team 2, we're unhappy with our score, we can quit, we can reset, we can play team 1, team 2 again, and then, or we can also finish team 1, play team 2, quit out of team 2 and just do team 2 over and over again until we're happy with our score. And then only upon finishing the 3rd team does the score actually get locked in, does it actually become official. So yeah, that is pretty much the situation of how this works. Rewards, you'll see that most of the rankings, like if you want to make it higher into the rankings, you're not going to be able to do so unless you play Nightmare, because otherwise you're going to be capped to just 2 million damage. You might still make it into a certain percentage, but it's a bit hard to say how high that will go. So make sure you play stage 5, make sure you have your attempts for Nightmare. Then, also at the moment, do not use the Trial Assault. Trial Assault appears to be bugged or appears to not scale your units as well. So the scores you get on Trial Assault are way less and the fight itself is way harder during Trial Assault compared to just playing the fight as it is. While we are in the fight though, we can talk about this boss's abilities and also why certain strategies do and don't work, and why certain characters are good and why certain characters aren't. So interestingly enough, this gains immunity control, attack speed down and damage taken up effects does not affect Daikalo. Daikalo can still apply her increased damage taken effect to the boss, so Daikalo, she can do that. This is pretty much just damage. And this Crystal Borrower, so usually he has like a second phase, he swaps, you realize it when you play the fight normally for yourself, but that's not the case here. He does not swap. He never summons these Borrowers, which means everybody that is AoE focused gets a big downgrade, because there's no point to bring an AoE unit if there are no AoE enemies. Especially also every character that relies on the presence of enemies for their kits to work gets worse. So Lamia cannot build Blood Frenzy stacks, Noah cannot build his summon stacks as fast, Spectral Gilrain has nothing to kill, so Spectral Gilrain cannot summon extra copies of himself. But yeah, so that's the base shenanigans. On top of that, also everybody gets hit equally, which means tanks aren't useful. Tanks would be there to like take the attention of the boss or maybe taunt him, but everybody gets hit anyway, which means tanks don't benefit you. And because tanks don't benefit you, that means that those are also out, which then brings us to the moon phases. So if we take a quick peek at the moon phase, you realize the low moon is most likely going to be your healer, because you're going to need a healer, especially with everybody getting hit. So even less of a situation in which you would want to bring a tank. But on the note of tanks, Transcendent Amy is still really good, because she has the self heal, the self sustain, which can be quite useful in increasing your overall survivability. Alright, so now that you know how the fight works, let's go over a tier list, as well as also how to build a proper team and what that looks like. So let's go through it, let's do a bit of explanation right here. We won't go through every single character, but we go through the most important ones and the reason why. So Lamia, T-Harty and Van Helsing are what you could call your 3 main DPSs. Preferably you have a T-Harty, a Van Helsing and a Lamia, and those would be your team leads for team 1, team 2, team 3. Why main DPS? Because you'll most likely only have the enough blood from the Blood Moon to focus on one specific character using their ultimate over and over and over and over and over again to get the most benefit out of this whole thing. And then the second Acapella, Dicarlo, and Thibault, those are your best supports. So Acapella provides the increased blood soul recovery as well as the crit rate and the damage increase, and she works incredibly well together with Van Helsing. So it's a pairing of Van Helsing and Acapella. Lamia as well as Dicarlo. Dicarlo with the increased damage taken up. Overall with her having a cheap cost at 3 and also not being locked into the channeling, so that's important. Because with the Lamia you want to spam Lamia's ult, then you can spam a Dicarlo ult, and then if you do more ults you'll again get a Dicarlo on your hand you can throw out again, pretty much just giving you cheaper ults and just faster ult cycling. So it's Dicarlo and Lamia. And then for the last pairing it's Transcendent Hearty as well as Thibault. Now you might be wondering what the hell is Thibault for a kind of support, and that is because Thibault can provide you the 40% increased crit chance to your whole team, as well as also as a unit itself getting the extra crit damage boost through the talent. So one team gets supported by Dicarlo, one by Acapella and one by Thibault. Next up, the S tier, we have Ressa. Ressa is also part of the Lamia, Ressa, Dicarlo cycling, I would say. At the end of the day, you're looking at really cheap abilities. You want to go into a Blood Moon as often as possible, and then you're pretty much just spamming these abilities to no end. I'll obviously be showing you a gameplay or battle example on how you actually pull that off. Then we also have Stereo-Eyed Iona and Seth. Stereo-Eyed Iona, she's by far the best healer for this. She can solo heal, she'll be able to keep your team alive, and you'll be fine. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Seth at the end of the day, she doesn't touch her units, she just keeps everybody alive. She's probably even better than Stereo-Eyed Iona, because if you move a unit around, you do interrupt them from doing DPS. And then we have Incendiary Garrus and Transcendent Nova as other DPS options, maybe even main DPS if you don't have a Transcendent Hearty. Like for example for us, we'll be mostly relying on a combination of Transcendent Nova and other units to make this whole thing work together. Then we have Gilrain. Gilrain, he's a really good off DPS. So mainly he's a character who can rack up a good amount of damage without you having to use the character's ultimate, by him just doing most of his damage with his basic attacks, especially with his talent and the Eye of Truth artifact. Also, you can use his ultimate to take care of the Calamity Crystal or whatever it's called that would explode during the fight, dealing massive damage. So that's why he's quite helpful. And then Darcius. Darcius has self-sustain, Darcius has self-heal, Darcius has the bleed. If you put Darcius on a team, it allows you to equip the Poseidon Skull for the extra debuff damage. So that's why Darcius is right here. And then Edina. Edina, she's just good at healing, right? She's a solid option. And especially if you don't have a Seth, you really want to have an Edina, because otherwise you're not really going to be able to do 3 teams. So Stereo-Eyed Iona, and Edina is what you need to use if you don't have a Seth. Then quickly here we have Otavia, just good damage with self-sustain. Triss, decent damage. Selena, surprisingly good damage, because she can build up her Shadow Arrows to 10 stacks and then you can use your ultimate like once during a fight. Works quite well in like the 3rd team that we're going to be showing off. I don't know why Edina's here twice, ignore that. And then we have Hearty. Hearty is kind of in a similar situation as Gilrain, just that her basic attacks aren't as effective as Gilrain's. Nicole, her ultimate can become quite expensive, but again, same situation as like Gilrain. Theophane, if you need a low moon or if you need some extra survivability for your team because you're dying, Theophane might be your man. Same with Yggdrasil and Tia Amy just as a self-sustain unit. Clive, lifesteal, decent damage. Augustine, I guess we could move it even higher, but he's more specific. He needs to work like in a certain comp, you see that. And then we have, limited by talent. Summons kind of get destroyed a bit too much in my opinion, but it's not too bad. Not really useful because you don't tank stuff, not really useful because you don't tank stuff, nothing to bounce upon, nothing to kill. Rare unit, AoE, yes, nice DOT, but mostly AoE. Too low of a focus on the unit and also not a long enough buff duration, like the 10 seconds for 27% attack speed, especially without skill up investments, just not worth it. Lamia, nothing to kill, no blood frenzy. M.S, she just suicides herself at the end. She's better at burst rather than sustain. And then we have the rest of the units, and that's pretty much it. So let's move on to team building. Alright, so this is how your teams are, you could say, meant to look. Let's go from left to right. Let's actually move myself around. So this is Our team, team 1 with Van Helsing main DPS, Lamia team 2, this is like the theoretical team 3 because we don't have a T-Hearty, and this is what we actually used instead of T-Hearty. So this is what we used, this is what would be like the theoretical best team, right? And you can see we have Van Helsing as main DPS with a cappella support and also Iona healing. The reason why it's Iona healing is because we can get away with it, right? We can use Iona there and we can survive to the end, which is quite important. And also because Iona heals without moving, right? She doesn't move anybody around, so she doesn't interrupt Van Helsing from ulting, as well as also she has a cost of 3 rather than Edina's 4, so it makes rotations a bit easier. Then we have a Gilrain or Hearty because we need to take care of the crystal. If we don't eliminate the crystal in the Van Helsing team, we just get wiped. You see it during the fight. Then for the Lamia team, we have the Lamia, Ressa, Daikalo, Battery, and then Stereite Iona. The reason why is because we just move in front of the boss. We'll just stay right in front of the boss. The moving doesn't really affect us. And we again have the benefit of a 3 ult cost rather than a 4 ult cost. And then that's where this last team comes in, where we have... I guess I'll explain this team because you'll actually see that one. We have Thibault, Edina, and Augustine. Augustine as a half moon as kind of our engine. So the way this works is we start off with Edina to keep everyone nice and healthy. Then we wait until we have around like 7 to 8 cost. Then we use Thibault's ultimate to start applying the crit rate increase. To then use Augustine to move into the Blood Moon and then trigger either a Selena or a Transcendent Noah during the Blood Moon, so that Augustine and whoever we're bursting with get the increased damage. And Seth, if you have a Seth, just replace her with Iona or Stereite Iona or Edina, wherever you want. She's just gonna make your life easier, and you're not gonna come as close to death as you would. So yeah, and this one is kind of open for whatever you really have, and the more investment you have in something, or maybe you might be lacking a better gear set for stuff. But these spots are pretty much kind of open to just be putting something else in, like for example a Transcendent Noah if you have a free one, Incendiary Agaris if you have a free one. Just any character that can do damage by themselves without heavily having to focus on using their specific ultimate. Alright, yeah, so here we are for team 1 of 3. We have Van Helsing, we have Acapella, we have normal Iona, and we have Gilrain. Gilrain you can, as we talked about, replace with, for example, an Hearty or anybody with like a targetable ultimate. You'll see when we use it. And then we also have Pierre right here. The way, or the reason for this formation is, in this formation, they bunch up together nicely, allowing Iona to pretty much heal everybody that needs healing, as well as also, then if we need to, we can sporadically give some healing to Gilrain. Artifact-wise, Eye of Truth, crit rate artifact, summoner artifact in case that when her summons die she gets healed. Acapella doesn't have an artifact. Gearing priority, best medium armor to Iona, second best to Acapella, and then it goes Van Helsing, Gilrain, Pierre for light armor in that order. Starting hand, Van Helsing on the hand, Acapella, and also Iona. Let's get into the fight. So we just want to open up with an Acapella so we can get the maximum rage region, the maximum bonuses, the maximum buffs, as well as also get some healing out so we can work ourselves towards that next moon, which is also the game plan right here. So I always like to wait for like around 7 to 8 costs so that we can go Van Helsing into almost an instant Acapella, as you can see right here. And then I don't tend to use any ultimates during the Blood Moon, because it already then helps us work towards the next Blood Moon so that our Van Helsing can do more damage. So that's kind of what you see here. Once again, we wait for around 7 to 8 cost, go into the Blood Moon, and then again we hold. So the important part here is once he starts getting that like Doom Spike or whatever the hell he calls it out, that is when we really have to pay attention and kind of like switch up what we're doing. But for now, again, we wait for, there you go. So we start our normal combo, but then we use Gilrain or whatever you have targeting wise to get rid of that crystal. Otherwise, Iona just won't be able to keep up with the healing. And also we might have to do something like an emergency heal, as in we might have to use an Iona ultimate somewhere at some point during the Blood Moon, but it really depends on the HP of your units. Though you should be mostly fine. And here, if you have the opportunity to use an Acapella, always use Acapella before Van Helsing. If it doesn't fit rotation wise, then it doesn't fit. Nothing too crazy about that. So right here, once again, we wait out the Blood Moon to again build towards the next one. and pretty much get as many Van Helsing ultimates out as humanly possible. As soon as we can, another heal, a cappella, so that we get some gear rain healing, and also Van Helsing because a cappella is already active. Once we cross into like the 1 minute mark, that's when we might want to use multiple heals, but then again, you see we have the crystal, we use our ability, we can also cycle a bit faster because of it, and this time we're actually going to try and heal our frontline unit, because we really don't want to lose him. It's just gonna be wasted blood. Once more, we can go in early, get the casts. We're closing in on the last minute, we're looking pretty good. We again wait out the blood moon to save the blood cost, get ourselves that healing. Again, this is another rotation where we wait for a cappella, so we wait for around like 8, and then we just start the blood moon, let it go through. Everybody's around half health, so we survived this ability quite fine, so there's no need for us to like pay special attention to anything. Blood moon again goes away, we use the ability, we wait for again around 8.5, 9, there we go, insta trigger, and once more use gear rain to take care of the crystal. So now that we've taken care of the crystal, also we can survive this. So this time again we wait, so we can build towards the next blood moon. A cappella is ready cycle wise, so that's why we're using a cappella early. We're getting hit here. We should be able to get one more blood moon off, and because we're closing in on the last second, one last gear rain ability to finish it off. There we go, and that is a score of 10.6 million. Overall, Van Helsing, he is the main carry, right? Van Helsing is the main carry. Gear rain, he does quite decently, but you've seen this whole strat heavily favors Van Helsing and making the most out of him. Alright, it's time for fight 2, what I call the Lamia Dicarlo strat. So main gear goes on Lamia, second best light armor gear goes on Dicarlo, main medium gear goes on Ressa, second medium gear goes on Darcias, third medium gear goes on Stereite Iona. Artifact wise, debuff damage, so Poseidon Skull, crit artifact, reason being has natural crit, these two benefit more, and we also have these two to provide the debuffs for the crit artifact. Yeah. Outside of that, this is the starting hand, so we start off with full moon rotation in Dicarlo, Lamia, and Stereite. So right here, this fight is actually, you could say, really simple. So you just move everybody in front of the boss. Stereite is going to be able to keep everyone alive, and it also doesn't hold up your melee units as long. We can use Dicarlo's ult right here to at least just get it out there, and then enter the Blood Moon with Lamia. For this first Blood Moon, we're not going to be using any ultimates, because currently for us, the ultimate of Ressa is still too expensive. So that's why we kind of let this run out. Once again, we move everybody into the middle. And then right here, we are already safe. We want to go for like around 8 to 9 blood, in which we go Dicarlo, into Lamia, into Ressa, into another Dicarlo, into a Lamia. And that's the first rotation done. So that's pretty nice. It's a lot of abilities. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of dragging too. But now we kind of just repeat the same pattern. So we wait again for around like 8 cost. You can use Dicarlo's ultimate to also take care of the crystal, and even if it explodes, you always have a Stereite Iona next to you. So right here we can reduce Ressa's cost to 0, use another Dicarlo ult, follow that whole thing up with another Lamia ult before the blood moon disappears, as well as another Ressa ult. So quite a lot of ults. And my reasoning kind of is, if Ressa's ult costs between 2 and 1, it's so cheap you can just use it. If it's like 3 or 4, that's kind of when you like skip out on it and wait a bit. So once more, we're going in with around 8. We open up the Blood Moon. We have a 1 cost cycle into a 2 cost ultimate. Boss does its thing, kind of stops some momentum. Another Lamia, and then it's another Ressa ult at just 1. So again, we just let this whole thing go through. We accumulate some cost. We get everybody again in the middle, get some shields going. We don't want anybody to die. And then once more, we wait for around 7 or 8. Go in with, well, another interruption. But here we again make Ressa cheaper. Use Ressa to just fast cycle. Make sure we kill the crystal with Dicarlo. get that Lamia ult out and another Ressa ult at 1. Alright, and then once again we bunch everybody up again, give everybody a shield, make sure everybody's nice and heavy. You see how it's like kind of like rinse and repeat, it's pretty much the same pattern. So again we wait for round 8, we start off with Dicarlo, go with Lamia, go with Ressa for rotation, bring in a Dicarlo, bring in another Lamia, and then finish the whole thing with a Ressa. Once more, make sure everybody's nice and healthy. You see, it really is the same rotation over and over and over again, you could say. So here we go. We start off with a Dicarlo, into a Lamia, into a Ressa, into another Dicarlo, into another Lamia, into another Ressa. Boom. Big boy ultimates. And once more we can bunch everybody up. We only have like 9 seconds left. So we kind of definitely want to use Lamia because she's just our hardest hitting. And then that's around kind of the way you want to do this. For example, this time we got like 10.4 million, 4.7, 1.8, 2.5. And we can even compare it to like our highest score, which was yesterday, where we managed to get an 11 million. You can see same team, it was pretty much everything the same to a degree, you could say. Just it's probably like a bit of like crit RNG for Ressa, crit RNG for Lamia, but it was basically the same. Alright, yeah, so it's time for Team 3. Team 3 includes, let's just go in order, Noah with the highest gear priority for light armor and the Poseidon Skull. We have Edina, no artifact, second priority for medium gear, because Augustine is first priority, he has the crit rate artifact. We have a Thibault in second highest light armor gear, also with the Poseidon Skull. And then we have a Selena in third priority light armor gear with a crit rate artifact. So that's the formation, and the reason why they're bunched up like that is because if you're using Edina, you want to make sure that you have either 4 or preferably 5 of your units in range. So either you go like, for example, full melee in like a Tihati team, or you do something similar to this, where if you leave this spot open, these 2 backline units, they just stay close together and you'll be able to heal all of them, as well as Thibault kind of just stopping in place because of the range. Starting hand wise, we want Edina, Thibault and Augustine. So let's go into the fight. The rotation here is actually quite simple. It is actually quite simple. So you naturally just start out with your healing spell. You can see how we can just heal everybody. So we just put a healing spell on our units. And then right here we have our first attack. But we're actually going to wait until around 8 cost to trigger a Thibault into an Augustine, so that we have the debuff on, that Augustine is in the Blood Moon, that we get more damage. And then we're going to add either a Noah ultimate or a Selena ult on top, but not for the first one, because that's what they're still going to need. Like Noah needs to get more summons to do more damage, and you see these stacks over Selena. Selena is kind of like stacking up these shadow arrows, and at 10 her ultimate deals more damage. So yeah, we kind of proceed with the same thing, and we wait for the Blood Moon to end so we can get better into the next Blood Moon. Once again, we are around at 8. We can start with the ultimates. And here you'll see how Noah already has 4 summons, so 4 out of 5 summons. We're just going to sacrifice him with the ultimate, give him a bit of damage up. And that is pretty much what we're doing right here. Once again, we're going to make sure we just heal everybody up. And then for this one, for the Crimson Crystal, just use the Thibault ult. Just use the Thibault ult to hit the crystal, to hit the boss at the same time. And then again, use an Augustine to enter the Blood Moon. So for now, you see we barely have any summons left. We don't have any stacks on Selena, so we're not going to be triggering anybody here. Once more focusing on getting towards that next rotation. So once more right here. And then Noah, hopefully, let's see, yeah, he gets his 4 summons, so we're going to go with Noah right here again. Use Edina to heal ourselves. You see Noah, he got the rocks down, but nothing actually happened, right? Nothing actually happened. Once more we wait for around 8 cost, so that we can start the normal combo. And you see how Selena now has 10 arrow stacks, so we're going to be using Selena right here. to actually get rid of those arrow stacks and do a big boy ultimate. Blighted Whale hits our units, we're going to be fine. Crimson Crystal, so we again have to start off with a Thibault to get rid of the crystal. And if we look at our unit's HP, we obviously then want to go in with the healer, as well as getting into the Blood Moon with the Augustine. Noah has again 4 summons, so we can use Noah's ultimate. So you see how Augustine is barely alive, which means we use our healer here. And then we kind of try to get into our rotation as fast as possible. Right here. So luckily enough for us, Edina also heals him, right? Edina has a talent where she heals the lowest HP unit. So that kind of makes him survive here a bit longer. And this time we're actually going to, if we survive this, we lost him here. So what I wanted to do was dedicate an ultimate to Augustine to keep him alive. So you just want to play this rotation a bit faster, right? Usually you just want to place this rotation a bit faster. Now we're in kind of an awkward spot. But I hope you got the idea of how this rotation and such works. And if we could have saved Augustine there, obviously we would have done more damage. Now we cannot enter the Blood Moon anymore, which does cripple our damage potential quite a lot. Also no Augustine. So yeah. But yeah, by far make sure that your team 1 is doing well, that your team 2 is doing well, and team 3 is kind of where it goes. Huh? So yeah. Let's see, can we see our latest score? No, but we can at least see our total score. So just that I didn't talk a bunch of shit. We used the same unit, same gearing, same principle, pretty much same rotations for 10.2, 11.1 and also 6.9. And if you noticed, yes, we did actually get more out of our team 1 than we did yesterday, or me alone at night trying to make these teams better. So as always, thank you for watching, and we see each other in the next one. Peace!